So this is the temperature of the compost experiment, 6 40-gallon drums in the basement with different mixes of each. And remember, this is the temperature as seen by the sensor on the exhaust air coming out of that bin. So fresh air from the basement, the ambient temperature, the temperature on the graph on the left-hand side is the temperature difference of that exhaust air compared to ambient. So for instance, air comes in from the basement, goes through bin 8, and then on the way out of bin 8, we have that temperature difference. And then it goes into bin 7, and then from out of bin 7, we have its temperature, and then out of bin 6 to 5, out of 5 into 4, out of 4 into 3, and from 3 it exhausts out of the room. Now, it's not a big surprise here. This was not mixed or stirred or anything like that. Just a little bit of water was added for the moisture content and that air circulating. So it petering off in 5 months or so is not unexpected. The mixes. It's also not too surprising that the paper goods, the leaves, things like that, had a bigger percentage of volume change. And remember, the volume change is partially from compression of the material over time, and partially from the consumption of the hydrocarbons. During the composting process, they turn some of that into carbon dioxide, which goes off as a gas. Now, we also see, when I started to shut down the experiment around month 6, in order to shut it down, I changed out to a higher volume fan, which looks like just a bathroom kind of ventilation fan. And that allowed me to start drying out the mixture. And then it was already slow, and you can see some of the temperatures compared to ambient start to go negative, where it's actually getting maybe some evaporative cooling going on or so forth. You can't even maintain ambient conditions. I want to do that to try to make everything dormant. That's a good way to get those microbial organisms in a compost pile to go dormant, is to dry everything out before I took everything apart and so forth. And so after that was done, then I opened up each drum in sequence. So starting with the first one, which was number 8, you can see it barely went down at all. And then moving on, and that was wood pellets, the fertilizer, and the starter. And then moving on, we went to 7, which looks like it went down a whole lot. That was paper goods, wood chips, wood dust, and the starter and fertilizer. And then we go on to number 6, which was paper goods and MDF particle board sawdust. And then to 5, which was just MDF particle board sawdust. And then we go on to 4, which was just paper goods. 3, which was just leaves. And then it exits out the building. One of the interesting things was that the base, the galvanized steel framing that I used as a structure, corroded fairly well in less than a year. So the composting process, is full well capable of doing that. A little bit surprised how quickly that galvanized steel got beat up. But so it was some temperature, even in as small as a 40-gallon container. Some of those temperatures were, 20, 30 degrees or so Fahrenheit above ambient. So warmer, some kind of heat coming off of that, but not hot enough that I would say it's worth being a heater per se, not at the 40-gallon scale. And remember, that is also only at that little 1.5 watt fan rate of airflow too. So that's not very fast. So it's that temperature at a very small volume of air. The next part is going to be to take all this apart, and I'm going to set up my next scale, which will be outside in the backyard. This was sheltered in the basement from the ambient conditions. The next one in the backyard is going to be exposed to the elements, so it won't be as sheltered, and it'll be a little bigger though. I'm again going to keep with the 10. So from 40 gallons, the next one's going to be closer to 400, 4 or 5 feet wide, 4 or 5 feet tall, and I'll put some temperature probes and so forth in that. Then that'll take, maybe another, year or so before I'll get at least, till spring or summer before I have the data on that. But we'll see what happens.